Before I get started, a bit of a programming note. The engagement I had with the Out of Spec Bits channel has been diminished, and I'm not sure exactly if you're going to see me over there anymore or not. It's a little bit ambiguous. I may do one or two things. They went through a reformatting of the content as they commonly do in larger YouTube outlets or channels like that, and so they're refocusing their programming. Myself and a couple other content creators were decreased in the amount of engagement that we have with that channel, so it may have additional content over there, but by and large the content that I produce will be here on the Network Architect channel. It was cool to see Chris and William's most recent video on Out of Spec Bits really pop. It looks like it's going to get about 50,000 views or something like that. Really cool. It was about the Norway accelerated electric vehicle experience versus what it's like here in the United States. So, very cool video. I encourage everyone to go and check out Chris and William's most recent video there on the Bits channel. Okay, so the news here in the States has been kind of frightening, and the truth is I don't actually watch the news. I kind of have my head buried in the sand on purpose. I long ago just uncoupled from the 24-hour news cycle. I find my life is fine. If it doesn't affect my ability to go to the grocery store, it really doesn't concern me, was basically my stance. However, my wife occasionally bleeds through, and I kind of pick up bits and pieces from her at conversations around dinner and whatnot. And I understand it's pretty nasty hyperbole and rhetoric currently getting tossed around out there. And she's of Latin American descent, and definitely concerning to me that there might be some concern for her safety in travel and whatnot. And as a protective husband, that definitely has caught my attention, at least that aspect. And I understand there's many other nasty things coming over from our increasingly senile commander-in-chief, is how it appears. And I apologize for touching the third rail. I am a registered Republican, and I just, from what I'm hearing at least, it doesn't really sound like there's a sober approach to governing currently occurring out of Washington. But regardless, we do have adversarial leaders in the federal government currently. All the EV chargers were ripped out of federal property shortly after the administration changed, and so it's very clear signals, unambiguous, that the hostility towards electric vehicle adoption from the federal government is pronounced. So, is the adoption of electric vehicles going to cease? I mean, we're still living in a free country as far as I could tell, and we're free to make buying decisions. Generally, the federal government doesn't get involved if we buy Coke or Pepsi, so I'm assuming we still have consumer choice here in the United States. But let's just kind of leave that aside, because the whole witch's brew cocktail that's currently occurring here in the States, we can sometimes lose focus on what's going on elsewhere in the world, and there is significant change occurring. Meanwhile, while we're all distracted with the 24-hour news cycle that's going on here in the States, China is quickly starting to take over automotive sales in markets all around the world. And I think it's telling that what is going on, and I'm going to touch three locations: Latin America, Ethiopia, and Nepal. These three locations I'm going to touch on very briefly. And the reason that these have caught my attention is because these are areas of the world where the population don't have a lot of money. We're not selling new Mercedes to these people. This is a proposition where, hey, you want to spend less money to get a more reliable car? The answer seems to be yes. Yes, I do. Don't really care if it can't go 1,000 miles on a tank of gas. As long as it can get me to and from my job, it's going to be a reliable vehicle. I have the means of refueling this vehicle, and it costs less, and it's more reliable because it doesn't break down as much, and it has a total cost of ownership that's less than an internal combustion engine car. Makes total sense. And in the case of some of these areas, Ethiopia and Nepal in particular, the energy cost is significantly decreased as a result of hydroelectric, part of the national mix. But let's just go ahead and get into it. So I just asked AI, and this is what got dumped out onto my screen for Latin America, talking about a projected 73.5% year-on-year growth in 2025 for Latin America as a whole, specifically calling out Brazil and Mexico with affordable Chinese brands. Rapid sales. Brazil and Mexico are the largest markets by sales volume, and they're also have the highest. I'm sorry, Costa Rica and Uruguay have the highest EV share of new vehicle sales, but both Brazil and Mexico are seeing significant increase in electric vehicle sales as well. So let's just ignore the United States for a moment and look that south of the border, going all the way down to Antarctica. There's a huge landmass filled with people who need to go about their daily business, and it looks as though electric vehicles are increasingly becoming a part of the mix thanks to the Chinese showing up and starting to sell and being welcomed into those markets. I don't really think Latin America has any affinity to one automaker or another, as long as their population are able to get from point A to point B with reliable transportation, are not being exploited, and there's no concern from exploitation or a product getting dumped into a market that is substandard, that is then affecting people's ability to get around, and everything is above the boards, and whatever tariffs need to be paid are paid. I don't think the governments in Latin America care one way or the other whether or not the electric vehicles are being manufactured by China or not. I personally don't care either. I'm sorry to say, there's so many things in my house made in China. There's recently a lot of talk about iPhones, the new iPhone 17 on YouTube, and those are all made in China. I don't know why no one is concerned about iPhones and technology. I work in the technology field. Most of that stuff comes from Taiwan specifically, but sometimes from China. The network engineering hardware that is manufactured. Sometimes it's brought in through Mexico, but generally that's where it's made. Anyway, sorry for getting off topic. So in Latin America, what we are seeing is a uptick in adoption as far as what we would expect to see in a typical adoption curve, basically occurring in multiple areas throughout Latin America, specifically in 2025. Next topic, Ethiopia. So Ethiopia actually outlawed the import of internal combustion cars because the government has taken a stance that is in the national interest of Ethiopia to be uncoupled from petroleum oil, from petroleum products, foreign petroleum products, because if you look at macroeconomics, if they could generate the fuel for their light-duty vehicles in country, it just makes more sense. The national interest is improved for the population to be consuming the fuel for their light-duty transport from electricity generated in country. And so it's been a couple of years, and so we've now gotten to the point where in Ethiopia, flat out, gasoline-powered cars, these are imports. So if you want to make a gas car in Ethiopia, it's not going to be banned. But if you want to make a gas car in Germany and bring it to Ethiopia, you can no longer do so. So there is a problem with the power grid, but the electricity has the ability to be generated in country. And so once again, here we are with Chinese manufacturers showing up in order to start selling electric vehicles in Ethiopia, which is being embraced. Now, these are not, once again, this is a not wealthy area of the world. And when we're talking about price parity, tipping points, and mass adoption occurring, I personally think it's helpful to look at what's going on in these lower economic strata, because if there's adoption occurring down there, the whole argument that electric vehicles cost more, are not practical, and all that things no longer stands true, because we're talking about Ethiopia. And This portion of Africa is really not known as a center of global wealth. They do pretty well in Ethiopia as compared to some of the neighboring countries around them, but still it's not a center of major financial wealth. So we have two down, Ethiopia and Latin America, seeing significant increases. Specifically in Ethiopia, government policy is pushing adoption even faster as a result of trying to focus on the overriding national interest of the country. Lastly, this one really surprised me because Nepal and Tibet, and obviously Tibet got taken over by China, but Nepal is very close to China, and so the influx of Chinese vehicles are something that you would expect just because they're so close to China, but is a tremendously poor country. Very widespread poverty in Nepal, and people who are just living subsistence through agriculture and very basic means. The Kathmandu Valley is the primary area where food is produced for the country, and the one city that is a population center, Kathmandu itself, has a pretty significant population, but still poverty is very widespread. However, in Nepal, where was it? The government has set the ambitious EV targets of 90% of new four wheels sold from 2030 to be electric, supported by tax reductions. Finance. So why is Nepal trying to encourage its population to buy electric cars? The answer is because it's a very mountainous country, they have the ability to generate electricity using hydropower, which means very similar to Ethiopia, they can generate electricity for their light-duty vehicles that their population is using in country, and they don't have to send money out of the country in order to purchase foreign petroleum products. It just makes macroeconomic sense in the national interest of Nepal to help try in some extent to improve the standard of living of their population, to not purchase foreign petroleum products and instead encourage their population to purchase electric vehicles, specifically from BYD is what's being called out here, and have them refuel those vehicles using domestically produced energy. So where was the number? It was something like up into 40, maybe 70%. Oops. Sorry about that. Let me fire this back up. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me get this fired back up. It said, and let me collapse this down. Market share, over 70% currently of newly imported passenger vehicles are now electric, representing a remarkable shift in the automotive market. That was what I was looking for. It was 70%. So currently in Nepal, 3/4 of the new cars sold are fully battery electric in a tremendously poor country. So the idea that electric vehicles are waning in popularity is not the case. They have passed price parity. They are identified by states as being a encouraging path to a national self-interest. If you're able to generate your electricity in country at a reasonable rate instead of relying on foreign petroleum. So outside the United States, whatever is going on with the witch's brew here and with the federal government and whatnot, the world continues, and electric vehicles are here to stay, and it seems to be that mass adoption is occurring all around us. When you're looking at the economic strata of Latin America, Ethiopia, and Nepal, going into very rapid adoption rates on the uptick of the adoption curve, it tells you that the technology is solid. This just came across as a bonus story for this discussion. And I saw this just today. It was from Clean Technica talking about how Europe's long-haul trucking has a new plan laid out for charging stations in order to connect. Where was it? It was in northern Sweden. They want to connect all the way down to the tip of Italy and also out into the Ukraine, a trucking route that has charging stations. You can see there's 117 in operation. These are able to accommodate long-haul trucks. And there's an additional 236 planned in order to build this plant out. And you can see it kind of sparses out here in Ukraine. But the stations are identified. And this story was very interesting. So we're not only talking about the electric vehicle adoption outside the United States in poorer countries, reaching very high acceleration, but now we're talking about actual tractor-trailer transport, not light-duty, but heavy-duty transport being accelerated as well throughout Europe. So this is the European Union's plan that was just recently released concerning the refueling of long-haul trucks, which I will link down below in the description, this Clean Technica article. So regardless of what's going on here in the United States, I would have to say that we are doing just fine, going according to script. There's massive change occurring all around us, and we could try to pretend like it's not going to happen to us, but eventually a rising tide lifts all boats, is my opinion. Anyway, thanks for watching.